I'm glad you could make it to the SBP podcast, Mobile Filmmaking. I'm your host, Susie Botello, and you're listening to episode 115. Hey everyone, I'm here at the, I'm actually in Canada with our guest, Jason C. Marshall. You remember Jason. Hey Jason, how are you?
I'm good, and I would hope people remember me because I have droned on your show several times already.
Oh, definitely. But you never know. This could be somebody's first time, which would be great too. If you are here for the first time, we welcome you, we love you, we embrace you, and we're glad you're here. Stick around. We have a very special guest with us this time, which is going to help make our show a little bit special, a little more festive, and bring in another perspective into what we usually talk about. And also want to wish everybody happy holidays. So let's introduce you to our surprise guest, Julian Bate-Vergette. Julian.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, you're very welcome. Hey, listeners, just in case, Julian, that name might sound familiar if you've been listening to the In the Weeds series episodes with Jason, because Jason brings up Julian quite a number of times. And so we thought it would be really cool to have Julian with us here now that we're ending 2021 in December here. Julian, you and Jason are embarking on a lot of adventures, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely.
This would be a great segue here, actually, to mention something really cool that you guys are doing, something adventurous. Jason, why don't you talk a little bit about your adventures in filmmaking?
Oh, well done, Susie. So yes, after Susie had encouraged me and persisted in getting me to come on the show and talk about my little niche, and I become more comfortable with recording and my own voice out there. Julian and I, who have worked together for the past 3 years now, are going to launch our own podcast.
Yay!
Called Adventures in Filmmaking, and it is specifically looking at filmmaking from the perspective of we'll call them nobodies, the people on the bottom like us, the DIYers, the ultra micro budget.
They are in the undiscovered somebodies.
There you go.
Yes.
The undiscovered somebodies. So we talk about not just our own experiences, but we've already interviewed several people in our own filmmaking community, and we've already started to reach out and branch out, and there's some interest from people with varying levels of success on the ladder.
You guys are gonna be you're gonna be an instant success. I can already tell. Julian, let's talk about our new friend here, Julian, for a minute. Julian is quite talented as well as Jason is. Julian is also a musician.
Yes.
And so I want you to share a little bit about how you got into that and the filmmaking part as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've kind of always I play guitar for pretty much my whole life, on and off. I never call myself a professional guitar player, but I've always had an interest in music, and I've always had an interest in film. From a young age, I remember telling my dad, like, "Hey, I want to make a movie. Let's get a camcorder and make one." Stuff like that. Nothing really happened though until 2017. Though I started really trying to tackle it. I'll put it in quotes, professionally. I reached out to some people in the local filmmaking community here, and I've been making films on and off now, and that's actually how I met Jason. We met on one of the film sets, and we've been frequent collaborators ever since. And it's actually the pandemic that kind of made me look at things a little differently. And I went back to school and I studied music, because one thing that Jason and I always kind of talk about is how sound is so important in films. Yeah. And I wanted to learn how to not only record better sound, but also be, dive into myself as a composer. And so it was kind of like a double whammy in that regard. And now I'm composing as well as making films.
You know, one of the things in my classes in college, in our audio classes, I remember we went into the studio where the big sound mixers are, and we were comparing different music, from different artists, and they were all famous. But you could tell who was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for the recording studio and who wasn't paying maybe $10,000, just based on the sound. And so it's hard in audio, just like I think in many ways in film too, but I think in audio it's even more obvious, right? That the combination of not just the equipment that you use, but also the sound mixers and the way that you put that together in post afterwards.
Yeah.
And the acoustics in the studio when you're playing instruments and doing the vocals and things like that. So yeah, that's really interesting. And that is going to bring you into a good partnership with Jason when are you guys making any films together? Or are you planning on it?
Oh yeah. We're actually kind of we're going to be making a lot of films this year, because we're going to be doing we're kind of setting up a challenge for ourselves, and we're doing a film a month. It's going to be interesting. It's kind of it kind of started out as because one thing that you'll learn about me is I love like horror as a genre, and I love concept horrors. I find that when it comes to short films, horror is so interesting because I think it works best when it is situational. Right. And it's like, like Lights Out, for example. That was a quick little scene, right? Yeah. And the idea was to do a film a month, kind of try new special effects and stuff like that, and just really push ourselves, get a little bit more ambitious as it goes on. But I guess, Jason, you can allude to how it's evolved even further from that.
But we're talking about shorts or features?
Shorts.
So it's mainly, it's not like a feature film where things drag on to really spook somebody, blah, blah, blah.
No.
This is like, let's just scare the heck out of somebody at the moment, and then we're done. We succeeded, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. The as Julian said, it's evolved, because originally we talked about doing just concept shorts, but we're kind of leveling up to be more of a over the next 12 months, we're going to cover multiple genres, and essentially the goal is to create a portfolio to show that we're able to achieve a certain amount of range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but we probably won't stray over. I think a large portion will still be the concept horrors, because of the ability to craft a story and get a scare very quickly. So, so basically, we plan, and then, we shoot for a day, and then that one's in the can and into post-production.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Speaking of that, the holidays over the last 4 or 5 years, more than ever before, I've noticed that, since we're talking about horror films, that usually you would think that would have nothing to do with the holidays. But it turns out that there are more and more horror films made with the holiday theme than there have been in previous years. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah. I've seen a bunch on Shudder as well. Like I've seen a lot of
the Shudder is all horror.
Oh yeah, exactly. I've seen a lot of that, because there's a lot of I've seen a lot of slasher films specifically that are Christmas themed.
Did you guys watch Elves on Netflix?
No.
Now, when you say elves, are you talking about the old one with Dan Haggerty?
No, it's a new one. It's a mini series, actually.
Okay, no, not familiar.
It's an international film with subtitles. It's actually quite interesting. If our listeners could butt in, I'm sure some of you have watched it. But yeah, it's. I find also that a lot of the name some of these. You probably have a better memory for titles than I do.
Like you're talking about Christmas horrors in particular.
Oh yeah.
What was the one we watched?
The one with the K.
You're talking Krampus?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
Krampus is one of the big ones. Better Watch Out was one.
That's okay. Is that the one that we watched with the kid that turns out to be a psychopath?
Yes, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
that's the one.
That was very good.
Ooh.
That's the one that like specifically comes to mind for me. And Krampus as well. Krampus is one of the big ones.
There's also, the old oh man, I can't believe that I'm forgetting his name.
Black Christmas.
Yeah.
No, the animated one. The classic.
Rudolph?
No. Tim Burton?
Oh, Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
Yes, that one.
But as dark as that is and everything, it's still, childish.
Yeah.
But it's become kind of like the this is a horrible comparison, but like, what is that? It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh yeah,
James
like
Stewart.
it almost becomes required viewing now
Yeah.
every Christmas.
But it's like, oh, let's watch that, and then let's watch the Tim Burton, that one. I think a lot of the Christmas, I mean, those movies usually have a twist. I think they're perfect because I think the concept, right, of turning such a children's story, right? Santa Claus and candy canes and presents and Christmas carols, and turning that into a horror flick has been very attractive to people to just like, hey, let's twist this concept into a completely different genre. What are some other ones that you can twist up, like for example, Halloween's everybody thinks is like a kid's thing, but it has also a very dark background. But the way Halloween started, right, was completely different than what it's turned out because of the marketing, and I think Christmas is like that too.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, because I only noticed in the last, I want to say, couple of years, especially since Shudder has come out, I've been noticing a lot more horror films. I can't remember the name, but there's another film on Shudder that I watched that's also Christmas themed. It's not coming to me though.
I would Google it, but then I would get distracted right now.
Right.
I'm really into this. Jason, you wanted to talk a little bit about, in the last episode that we did, we were talking about concept and ideas. You wanted to bring something up with that, and I think Julian being here is great because you were talking about how you come up with concepts and ideas and how you go from an idea to a concept and vice versa.
Yeah, because it's a chance to take it from you and me talking about it as a theoretical to the practical, and generally, I would say, Julian, 95% of the time that you're the one that comes that comes forward with an idea.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hold on.
Ahead.
So
Go ahead, Susan.
I remember in our conversation, I was telling you about this dream that I had, which was a complete movie, and I asked you, do you know if Julian ever has a dream that is completely a movie, and then you wake up, you're like, this is a whole freaking movie from beginning to end? Has that ever happened?
Yes,
So I have to ask.
Yeah, it's very interesting because that happens to me more frequently than not, or even sometimes it happens to me where I'll remember, let's say, the whole dream, and maybe I don't use some of it, but it kind of sparks something that becomes a story, But I've had a lot of dreams where I'm like, oh, that would make a great film, and I even felt like I was watching it as a film in my head.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. It was like, from the beginning, it was like I was watching a movie, but I was in close, like I was experiencing as a viewer, like I was inside the scene, but I wasn't at one of the characters in the scene. I was just always there.
Yeah.
And this movie that I had, which is always fresh at the top of my mind, I mean, literally has the entire structure, formula, all that stuff in it, just like a great film that somebody else made, right? And it has a really cool twist in the end. And I'm like, there's no way that could have come from me, But it was like, did aliens take over and say, here's this really cool movie?
Oh, you got to get writing then.
I really should, but I think I should hire Jason to do it, because what happens when I start writing is exactly what you're not supposed to do. I don't have the patience to do all the outlines and everything like Jason does. I don't even have a whiteboard like he does.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's taken several years to get Julian from being a pantser to an outliner.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Yeah, sorry that I interrupted you with that, but I had to ask that to Julian.
So yeah, generally Julian very often has an idea, and whether send me a message or whatnot, and then we basically just take it from there, and we play what I've started calling the what if game, and that is, okay, so you have an idea. Let's start working it out to see is there a concept there, or is it just a gimmick and we can't really expand on it. So we just start, okay, well, what if this, and what if this, and what if this, and then when a line of questions starts leading to more questions, then we know we're on to something.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever come to, like, how long does that process usually take before you guys go, next, forget it, it's not going to work? What actually does that? Because I would think it's also a challenge, right? And you want to stick to it. But there comes a point where you have to come to an agreement between both of you. Go, no, it's screwed up, forget it, let's not go there.
I'll take the lead on this, and then Julian will get your perspective, which is basically, the idea is to take the idea and challenge it repeatedly to see if it holds up to scrutiny. And that is like, what about this? Like, well, no, that won't work because of this, or, well, if this happens, then we can't do that. So we kind of basically just, it's, so at first, and this is where it's going to get a little weird, because we don't do it in a linear fashion. We'll jump ahead to the end, or we'll talk about a character or a theme or a plot point or a structural beat. We kind of do it all over the map, but for whatever reason, we're able to keep things straight in our collective brains. So yeah, if something doesn't hold up to scrutiny, like, especially if it falls apart very quickly, like if you ask one question, the whole thing collapses, then okay, we're not going to go that route. Does that sound about right, Julian?
Yeah, I was gonna say, sometimes we kind of just choose to put it aside and revisit it much later. Like, there have been many times where we, have basically said, well, this idea is going nowhere. But, sometimes it leads into the inspiration for another story where we take elements from that thing and we put it in there. That happened with one of our concept shorts recently, Last Call, where it was like, we couldn't really figure it out and it wasn't really happening. And then, it just became, it just became a different thing, not even related to that first thing.
Yeah, that's the part of the process I love is essentially problem solving. But this, as Julian said, when you when you start with one idea and you're like, okay, this isn't working, but then you get a completely new idea that goes to concept, that goes to essentially structural discussion very quickly. It's like, okay, yeah, well, we hit on this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it is. It's a lot of fun.
That's the whole thing. And you know what's important for listeners is that you don't start to make don't make an entire production around an idea and a concept and everything, and then find out in the middle of it or while you're editing that things aren't fitting right, that something's wrong, that something's missing, and you're not sure what it is, right?
Yeah, well, that's that's the whole. Obviously,
I think
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I interrupted you.
I just say and that's my whole thing about outlining is that if you do the process that we're talking about and you outline things, then you need fewer drafts because your first draft is essentially pre-visualized before you even start typing.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on. Okay. I think sometimes something that is, took me a really long time to kind of come to terms with is sometimes it's not the right time to work on a certain project, which is kind of going back to something I said earlier, which was maybe you're not in the right, headspace to outline it correctly. Maybe you're just missing something at the moment, and sometimes you just got to put it aside and just say, I'll revisit that later. And then later on when you revisit it, we've had many times where we revisit something and then it becomes this like amazing script.
Actually, I do want to talk about that. There's a feature idea that Julian's been bouncing around forever, and we've talked about it multiple times.
Wait, are we giving away any intellectual property? Okay.
No. Yeah. No. It's all good. What it comes down to though is that just through multiple conversations, multiple discussions, it just wasn't coming. And then one night we went for a drive, which as it turns out, talking in the car works out really well for us because there's no distractions.
Yeah. We'll
just hop in the car and cruise around the city and start talking story. Anyway, there's for anyone Ottawa local, along the Rockcliffe Parkway, there's a little spot called the Lookout. It's just a little what would you even call it?
It's like a little gazebo.
Yes, and yes, and you're up high, so you're looking down on the Ottawa River and across to Gatineau. And there were, for the first time in like 50 drive-bys, there was no one there. So we stopped and got out of the car and just started talking about this idea, this thing that just wasn't working. And within maybe 40 minutes, we had a structural outline.
We had a first outline, and obviously we had to fill in the gaps, but it's a full outline basically of the film, and we hadn't made that much headway at all.
Wow. So so for listeners, that's what I'm also trying to drive home is, pun intended, is the fact that this whole process really is fun. Because it can seem like, before we got, it's kind of like, cooking a meal, there's different, like no one wants to peel the potatoes. That's like the most horrible part of cooking is like having to peel potatoes. Are you kidding me? And so, but in this process, peeling the potatoes is actually fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's something that you and I haven't talked about yet, Susie. But the whole point of this is that writing doesn't have to be hard if you just step back and learn the elements that need to go into it, and then just work them out beat by beat, element by element. Then
it's like the invention, right? It's like the invention. It's like before you're actually producing, your product, you're actually inventing it. It's actually the most fun. It's hard to say that with filmmaking, though, quite honestly, because it's all fun. But there's always there's pieces that it's not fun. But I think what keeps you going through that is that you've had so much. It's like the point of no return. You've had so much fun up to this point, And then this is not so fun, but if you get past this, you're going to have fun again. And it's sort of like that. This is why I always say it takes a special kind of people to make films in the first place. It's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And a lot of viewers out there are probably glad it's not for everybody because you don't have to watch a bunch of bad films before you finally watch a new one. Although there are a lot of bad films, but you got to give it to them because they actually completed it.
Mm-hmm. I will give you that.
Yep. Me too. What
That,
about you, Julian?
good.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have a lot of respect for any finished product because that was someone's passion.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the film is, doesn't matter what level of, quality it has. Someone was passionate enough to get it from through to post and finish the movie. So that deserves a pat on the back,
Mm-hmm.
And they had a family crew that became a part of that. And you never know who quit in the middle or what they had to go through, but somehow they stuck together to see it through. And those are qualities that are not just passion, but those are also qualities of the person with the passion, supervising, managing, being able to bring a team together and keep people motivated. Those are all great qualities. There's so much to making a film.
Oh my God, so much. That's one of the questions that we kind of, it may never get answered, but in the new podcast, that's something we're gonna ask everyone is essentially what compels you to tell stories, what compels you to tell stories in this particular medium, knowing that it is literally the most expensive way to create art.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also, see, the benefit of it. This is why I'm so passionate about film. I like to write too. I love taking photographs, and I feel like you can actually tell a story with a single frame, with one photograph, I'm very big on stories and storytelling and graphics, all those things. But the thing is that when you're talking about film, you are touching on everything at that point. You're really able, like the person that consumes that product, that film, really could just be sitting there on a chair, not move, do nothing except for watch and listen. It's effortless, and they are into your world. And they are perceiving the things that, if you do it right, that you want them to perceive. They feel things, they hear things, all those things combined. And all of it is to me, that's the magic, right, of the filmmaking. And the ability for you as a creator to say, wow, and to hear from people later, which is why social media makes it even better, to hear people's response to that.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to some critic writing about it, how I saw this, like, who cares? I want to see how everybody else, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing to me is, I'm not really a huge fan of critics and aggregates and all that. Really, what means more to me is, did my film reach people on an emotional level? And did it speak to people? What did they get from it? Stuff like that. That's important to me.
There's so many side stories of people who say, right now, I don't know if you heard, there's all the tornadoes that we've had. Right. And there's people, we've had fires here in California. You guys have had fires too. There's always stories, when you hear people talking about in the news reports, and they say, how did you survive this? How did you survive that? And it's like the people are talking and they're sharing, well, how did you know how to do this or that? Well, I saw it in a movie. Like your movie can actually save somebody's life just by them watching it and recalling that by being in that situation. You can also move somebody to the point of beyond, but empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
There have been people who have watched movies about special, people with challenges, like, I don't know, cancer, ALS, anything like that. And they have been moved to make a difference in people's lives like that. But they wouldn't have felt that had it not been for the movie that you created.
I do want to say something here, and there's a huge public admission, but I am a total movie crier.
Yeah, me too.
I am too.
Because what's the point of watching and okay, what's the point of watching if you're not going to get on board with the character's journey and care about what happens to them, even though they're fictional people?
But it's not always just that. It's also because it becomes you.
Mm-hmm.
You feel you are, it's a very quotable quote that's been quoted a million times, stepping into somebody else's shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where you are the character. I was watching, is that Fathers and Daughters? I don't know if you saw that one. It's with not Kurt Russell. Oh my God, what's his name? Whatever. Anyway, I can't think of it right now. I'm really bad. But anyway, Russell Crowe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a movie, I think it was like 2017 or something. I don't know. It could have been older. Whatever it was, I literally, there were things, I mean, I'm not a father. You know what I mean? But I mean, that movie went, by the time I got to the end, I was broken. I was in pieces, And I was like, oh my God, this is like one of those, it doesn't happen. You can't do that with every film you watch because you're going to end up on Prozac or something. But but it's just, it's like that. And you feel so deeply about it and you're just crying, and I'm sitting there going, I'm glad nobody's sitting here watching me watch this movie. Like, I don't even think I want to watch movies like that with somebody else.
That actually happened to me earlier today before I was getting ready for the podcast.
Oh no.
I was downstairs and my mom was watching The Way Back, which is a Ben Affleck film where he plays an alcoholic.
Oh.
And it was like, I watched the first, I want to say 10, 15 minutes, and it was very emotional and really accurately portrayed. And I was like, oh no, I am going upstairs. I'm not ready to feel this movie. So I think, obviously you need to be, obviously you can't do too many of those films back to back because like you said, you'd be on whatever type of medication. But I think that the way I like to do it is I'll watch something emotional, something that makes me feel, and then I'll have a palate cleanser, a comedy.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it's basically, COVID is a great example of that where you go, I just want to watch a happy movie. And you sometimes want to go, I just want to go back to 10 years ago or 20 years ago when life felt, because of the way your life was, that it felt simpler. I just want to go back to that time, and you can do that in a movie, as opposed to in real life. Obviously, there's no escape, but escape is the key, right? That you get to escape the real world, to go into that. But you can literally change the world with your film, and you don't know you're doing that. You just don't know how you're touching people, and what that film can mean for somebody, especially children.
Yeah.
That they'll remember a movie for the rest of their lives. And it's one thing that I say about filmmaking and making documentaries out of all the genres, where if you give the child, say a 10-year-old, say, hey guys, make a documentary about plumbing. Jason, he's building a bathroom. That's why we're laughing. And so make a documentary about that, right? All of a sudden, you know that kid is going to learn about plumbing, and they're going to interview plumbers, professionals, and they're going to have to listen to it, and then they're going to have to edit that and choose what the sound bites are that they're going to use, and then they're going to have to match that with B-roll, with the video images and all these things. And by creating that documentary, they will never again forget what plumbing is about. Where if you tell a kid, just write an essay, they'll do the research, they'll get all the sources and everything. But 2 years from now, they'll forget all about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it really does stick. It really does sink. So that's why I'm so passionate about filmmaking. I think we just talked about that for like 20 minutes, but I just wanted to drive that whole point. This movie that you guys are making, are you? I have to ask. I have to. Are you gonna use? What are you gonna use to film it as far as camera?
Okay, so this is we're. Sorry to jump in there on you, Julian. So this is the thing we're going to talk about this on the podcast, is that Julie is a DSLR filmmaker and I'm a mobile filmmaker. So camera choices will probably be dictated by whose project it is.
Yeah.
And what I mean is that it's safe to say it's going to work out shake out in such a way that Julian will probably be the director far more frequently than I am.
So you're both going to direct this movie?
Oh no! What I mean is that we're going to be, depending on the project, because like the one that you're referring to the one that we worked out. Is that
the feature?
Yeah, are you talking to me?
Well, yeah, I'm at. Sorry. So which one are you talking about, Susie? The 12 films, or the one that we just worked out?
Yeah, the one that you just worked out, because you were saying that you're going to make a film, and so I just kind of wanted to, because if you're doing 12 films, you can sort of alternate between who's going to be the director on this one and that one. But for most our listeners, they're not planning on making one film a month, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. So the okay. So to answer that is that most is that we won't be getting to a feature for some time. So in the short term, the multiple short films will, I would say most of them will probably be on DSLR. We do have a plan to do a much smaller monthly mobile film for a local thing. There's
a series there.
Yeah, there's a Kino group here in Ottawa, and they do a monthly thing, and we have an idea to build this, and every month they're like, it has to be about power or control or pillows or whatever, whatever they tell us to make it. So there's
is it be narrative, or is this like?
Oh yeah, no, it'll be narrative, but it will be shot on. Those will be shot on mobile.
And you're gonna use the Filmic Pro and all that for that, or?
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to send you a link to it, Susie. But there's one that we did. It's gonna be based on that, called Hop In, and you'll probably like this because we shot it with an iPhone 11, basically suction cupped to the windshield of a car, and a Beast Grip rig. And I'm hiding in the back, controlling the camera from my iPad.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So there's 4 people.
I've seen photos of this from a while back.
Okay, yeah. Yes. So it's a single shot, the 4 people in the car, and I am literally tucked away in the
trunk.
Yeah, but it's a hatchback, so the trunk is so I kind of got to squeeze in and stay as low as possible. So we're basically
you couldn't ride the hood, huh?
No. No, would rather not. So and that was all shot. So that was using all the tools, the Filmic Pro, the Filmic Remote, the Beast Grip, and so we're going to expand that into an ongoing series. So technically, we're going to make 24 films this year.
Wow.
Yeah. Now I'll say this: the those ones that we're going to do for Kino are very simple. Like when we shot the first one, it's a 3-minute film and we shot it in like an hour and a half, and it was improvised, and it went like, honestly, it was probably the best shoot we've ever had.
Wow.
But the best way I can describe it is it's almost like a sitcom is how it plays out. It's very fun.
And obviously, because you're in the car, the acoustics help with the audio, right?
Susie, I set up 4 mics in the car, one for each character, and we end up using the audio right from the phone.
So,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, the acoustics really do make a big difference.
Yeah.
I know that
it's,
I've told people before a few years ago, like, for God's sake, don't just stand in front of your phone in a coffee shop and expect the mic, on the phone to work out right. At least use your earpods or something, to make that audio better. Because distance, just, well, like, this, Julian, with microphones, distance makes a huge difference.
Yep.
In capturing. And also, like for podcasting, dynamic microphones are best because they don't pick up a lot of the noise around in the room and things like that as well. I sat with Aaron Nabus, one of our ambassadors. We used to go to this really crazy coffee shop.
Yep.
And we were using dynamic, and we were using the Zoom, recorder.
Okay.
And we're sitting there, and you'd think that the audio would be horrible, but it came out pretty nice, because once you're talking, the microphone doesn't care about anything around you. It almost fades away. I mean, it's in the background, but it's very faint.
Yeah, it's very minimal. Yeah.
Yeah. But with the other type microphone, the condensers, I think, those are different, and they tend to really be sensitive.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I use different microphones. I'm trying to lean, like, especially with our filmmaking. I'm looking into getting lav mics for the dialogue audio, because I just recently did a day on set of one of the Hallmark films, the Hallmark Christmas films.
Nice.
And we used lavs, and we used the boom pole, but there was one where there was just a lot of movement, and I was the boom operator running around, and we were like, no, there's cars, it's really noisy. The lav mics were the audio was pristine.
Yeah.
It was like, and so that's something that Jason and I were talking about, like, leaning into for, as we grow as filmmakers.
Yeah, a long time ago in one of my, actually, this was the first production that I worked on. This is back in, I think it was like 1998 or something, back when I was 2. No, I'm just kidding. But there was a girl that I wanted to be the hostess, right, of this this video. It was a little bit of a documentary. And so she was scared of heights. And as soon as I heard that, oh my God, I'm so cruel. I'm like, yeah, go up to the very top of that building and stand on the edge. And I'm going to shoot you from down here. And then I will, and she was standing, I had her stand up in all these different things, all these different places, and say, here we are in the blah, blah, blah. Here we are in the blah, blah, blah. And then cut him to open each one of these scenes. But she was wearing a lavalier mic. And it just took a while, though, because of the RF signals. Yes. And the distance. Yeah. And we were at the UCSD here in San Diego. It's a university. And yeah, so that also plays into it, depending on how much. There's so much that goes into production. See, now we're getting geeky. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think lavaliers are really good. I'm just curious, what is your, I'm a big fan of Audio Technica myself.
Yeah, I love Audio Technica.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm trying
yeah.
to reach over to Ottawa right now to high five you, and it's not going there. Yeah. Because I think like even their lowest end microphones still sound really good.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, it's really good bang for your buck.
Yeah, there you go. Quote
Yeah.
Julian on that one. Jason, so you are you're making this you guys are going into this new podcast. It's called Adventures in Filmmaking. Why don't you guys take turns on sharing just a little more, promote it. Just share with our listeners a little bit about it.
Well, I can tell you the inspiration behind it was, like I said before earlier, that getting on your podcast and doing the Nevers podcast has kind of kicked me into gear to be able, like, yeah, we can do this. And I messaged Julian, and I'm like, you know what? We've always we've talked about podcasts, but we've always made it more difficult than it needs to be. So why don't we just make a filmmaking podcast and talk about the things we know, the things we experience, the things we're passionate about? And then that grew to become, it'll be that, but it'll also be an interview show where we talk to as many low-level creators as possible.
Yeah, and I think like really our goal is to, like Jason said, is to speak to, the viewers or audience that maybe hasn't made a film or has made a film but might have failed in one regard, or just doesn't know how to do it. And we talk about our experiences. We interview people in similar situations that we are in, and it's just it's kind of a just sharing knowledge with the audience.
Yeah, so are you guys going to do one on the Blair Witch Project, like the one that just... That was so much fun.
Yes, it was. And I got to be honest, like I said, when you and I talked about it, Susie, well, I guess you and me and everyone talked about it, but I do not like the Blair Witch Project. It was so painful watching it again.
It's
so
actually
slow.
on, I forgot which one. I think it's either on Netflix or Amazon or one of those all of a sudden again. And I was like, shoot, I Googled it to death because I couldn't find it. And now all of a sudden it's back. It's our fault. We brought it back to the living.
There's like I said, I mean, we're going to talk to a lot of unknown people, and but the fact is that, look, there's a lot of podcasts about filmmaking, there's a lot of podcasts about how to filmmake, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of coverage in this specific area of, let's call them the unwashed masses of filmmakers who are just trying to make good product and get noticed.
Yeah. And I think it's important because we all learn from failures, and I don't want to call them failures because you're never really failing as long as you keep trying.
Well, alternatively, I was going to say, alternatively, just stop thinking of failure as a bad thing.
We'll see. That did not come out right, guys.
You're like,
forget
it is?
I just said it is. What I'm trying to say is, like, it's like when we say, this is the end of this and this is the end of it's like an end is just a new beginning. It's there's no such thing. And I hate that when people say, losers and failures and things like that, because you're never a fail. There's nothing that you ever do, because it all has to do with your mindset, right? And the mindset is very complicated. Some of us grew up with parents telling us you're a failure, you're a loser, if you don't do it this way, you failed, or things like that, right? But if you see it as a challenge that you learn from, if you take a risk, and it's not like you're going, I'm going to take a risk and I know I'm going to fail. You never take a risk like that. You always think that you're going to get something out of it, and you find something out of it, right? And then you do it again. I mean, imagine, right? that you're making a movie, take one, and then it doesn't work out. Oh, we failed. It's over. It's like one scene can take literally, 70 takes or something like that.
I do want to say this. If I hadn't quote unquote failed at making good films when I first made the attempts back in the early 2000s, it's doubtful I would be at the point where I know as much about storytelling methods and structure as I do.
That's right.
Yeah. There's a really great quote that I'm going to steal because it seems very wise and apt for this conversation, is that fail stands for first attempt in learning.
Uh-huh.
So, I look at, quote, failures as like little bumps in the road, but you're still on the road and you're still getting to your destination. And, there's just a lot of lessons you learn and you're on a journey, and the journey is what's important, the things you learn, the people you meet in your filmmaking journey.
Let's just admit that failure is non-existent. It's like the word should, right? Like you should have, but where does that go? Like should, right? So let's just say that. Let's just say for all you listeners, get that word out of your mind because it doesn't really exist. As long as you exist, you never fail. You never fail. Life goes on.
Exactly.
Sometimes you learn something without even realize that you've learned something. Like you don't have to be super conscious, to learn something about something. It's when you go about doing something else, right? That you go, oh no, I can't do it this way, or I won't do it this way, because I remember back then, years ago, I was going to do this one thing and it didn't work out the way that I anticipated. And now I know better. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm trying to motivate people out there. Never give up. Well, here we are. It's the end of 2021. I'm going to ask you guys a random question. Everybody's going to think I have these things written down, but I'm really, this is just really fun. I want to ask you guys a random question. What would you say would be, since we were just talking about failures, let me ask you, 2021, what was the best part of 2021 for you? Something that you thought, wow, I'm victorious because of this.
You go first.
Okay. So I mentioned near the beginning, I went back to school. Actually, this is very, accurate to, again, what we were talking about. The first time I attempted post-secondary education, I flunked out, and I was afraid to go back and study again because of just how poorly my first experience went, because I just thought, well, I didn't do well the first time, I won't do well this time. Well, I faced those fears, went back to school, and graduated with honors.
Awesome.
So, so 2021 is actually a pretty good year. So, again, that's that whole thing. Failure is it's not real. It's just it's a little bump in the road.
Awesome. So, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Jason.
Mine's not quite as big in that.
Okay, you're already criticizing yourself.
Well, I just say, look, I want to say, look, I went back to post-secondary school all the way back in 2000, and I went and I learned about learned electronics assembly because high tech was huge around here, and halfway through the course, high tech crashed, so there was no jobs to go to. So that's just a funny little side. No, I would say finally accepting your invitation to podcast. Would be a big one, because it took me out of my comfort zone and made me realize that I do kind of like this and having a voice, and also the fact that like I said, the two big projects that Julian and I are working on, because we're no longer making films willy-nilly, like, okay, I'm gonna make a film, but what do you do with it after that? So we have a plan to podcast, and a plan to make films that will entertain the audience and grow our professional skills with each one.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you know what? I can't even think of an answer for this whole question myself. I'm glad I didn't ask me that question.
Susie, what was the best part of 2021?
I'm sitting here going, oh my God, because this whole year has been, everybody probably already knows I work on so many projects between this, the festival, having you on the podcast has been remarkable, from my perspective. And I think, reaching the 100th episode was kind of a big deal. If I'm going to stick to just bringing things to the podcast itself, then I would say that was quite a big deal. And also, a couple months ago when we reached 10,000 downloads,
Nice.
for 1 year.
Quite a milestone.
Yeah, those milestones, which are not things I don't do that. I don't sit there and go, I got, I don't count subscribers. I don't do that. I just don't do that. But, you get an email from something and sometimes I share them, sometimes I don't. Most likely I don't share them. I wait until it's something major. You know what I mean? So I think that 100th episode to me was really special on this podcast. It was with Michael Corbell. And Michael was the very first winner in our very first inaugural film festival.
Okay.
And and he's been very successful since, well, he was successful even then. But he makes commercials, and I mean big time, like the Super Bowl type commercials and things like that. So to have him on the podcast was really cool because he's such a good storyteller, and the conversation with him ended up turning into an entire history of iPhone filmmaking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so if you haven't heard it, it's episode 100.
I'll go back and check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one was very special for the podcast. It's I consider it one of the biggest ones. Like, okay, what purpose does this podcast have? Well, it has a lot. Every single guest brings a new light and sheds something for our listeners. I learn from everybody, and I know that all of you guys out there are learning something from it too. And then there's once in a while, there's one episode that you're going, wow, that's almost like, I wouldn't say a legacy, but it's like, it's a big one, it made it really worth it. For everything else, I mean, I would say I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed that everything will turn out. We're planning on the film festival happening in person in April.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just so you know, Jason and Julian are coming. I'm twisting arms.
It depends on it depends on travel restrictions. Because
I don't care. I don't care. You're coming no matter what. You cross that border.
We'll walk across the border.
Yeah, there you go. Well, unfortunately, I don't know if you heard, Julian. It sounds like we're getting capacity limits again.
Yeah,
Oh.
But you know what? This is December. We're talking April. There's just so many things that can happen in between. That's why, like I said, for right now, it's a go. But I can't say 100%. It's very hard. It's very hard for, depending on where you are and what time, your film festival takes place. Our film festival always takes place and during the very last weekend of April. It's done that since the very first one. And it hasn't skipped a beat, even when we had to do it online last minute, in 2020.
Speaking of, are you going to look, even just because things are such a big question mark, are you going to maybe look at a hybrid model this year?
For
in person and online?
Yeah, the plan is that we're going to have the live in-person film festival, and then maybe a couple weeks after that we'll have the online version. But I also think people are tired, for the most part, of the talking heads in Zoom, Zoom meetings type thing. I'm really hoping that everything will work out. I doubt California is going to shut down ever again like it did in 2020. I mean, they just talked about 800,000 Americans. That's like
I saw that.
horrible.
Yep.
Like just completely horrible. And every one of those people is one individual person connected to a bunch of people.
It's shocking. Like that is like a city worth of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually Julian, it's almost all of Ottawa, right?
It's basically all of Ottawa. Yeah. You have to think about that. Like that's horrifying.
It's horrifying, and it's horrifying that more people don't see it in that way. That more people, they're just numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys something. How do you guys feel about the whole metaverse thing? Going virtual, everything.
I actually, I'll be honest, I don't know much about it. Like I heard about it and I've seen some headlines and stuff like that, but I haven't done much research in the whole metaverse topic.
I feel like it's a turn of the century type of a situation that we're in.
Yeah.
Where like the timing of things, it's like evolution, evolutionary in a way that you would think. But I think if you talk to a lot of the younger people, they're less into it than I see some of the older people in the business world, right? That seem to be into it more than some of the younger people.
Yeah, I'm with you. Beyond seeing the word metaverse pop up every now and again, I know zero about it because I honestly have no interest.
It's like you would live life. You would live life through an avatar, right?
All I think about with that is Black Mirror.
Well, yeah, that's what everybody's been comparing it to, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm questioning about it is who's going to control the world if our entire world experience shifts to a virtual reality. And if you think about that, right now, technically, there's not one person that controls the world, And so, you can talk politics all day, but there's not one person. But if we are shifting that way, you're looking at this one guy on Facebook. He's going to own the world.
Look at there. I don't know what is going on with billionaires right now, but they have all just gone around the bend between a race to escape the planet and brain chips and virtual reality. It's just, guys, just shut up and go away.
But the thing is, it's like we don't have to be a part of it.
Exactly.
That's what I wanted to say is like we don't have to go along with this whole thing if we don't want to. But we have to be careful because if things shape, if like all of a sudden it's like cash is gone, everything is banks. Those things are shifting in society as it is. There's certain things that little by little, just sort of take over and become the norm. Because everybody's doing it. So we have to kind of be a little mindful about what we're going along with. But I think a lot of people are waking up to the realization that we control the world together as individuals. And we can have all these conversations with each other to keep each other in tune with what is going on in the world. In a way that we can inform each other and keep tabs on it and make that decision as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could be all wrong, and that's just the way it's going to be. We wake up in the morning, get plugged in the back of our heads like the Matrix. So,
speaking of which, the Matrix comes out in a couple of days.
yes, I'm so excited about. Is that going to be the new Christmas movie?
Yeah.
The new Die Hard?
Yeah, I mean, oh man, speaking of Die Hard, that is totally a Christmas movie.
See, I'm just like I was joking to Jason. I'm like, no, that's when I say Christmas movie, I don't mean Die Hard.
Look, you want a Christmas movie? Anything by Shane Black.
Okay.
Yeah.
They all take place at Christmas. Lethal Weapon. What's the one with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe? The Other Guys or something like that.
Oh yes.
Iron Man 3.
Yeah, they all do. That is interesting. Yeah, they all do.
Take your pick. It was Shane Black Loves Christmas.
Do you think there is some childhood connection to that?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Does anyone know the story behind that?
Nope.
Because see, I think and I believe that almost all directors connect their stories from something personal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You know, they have this need to share this story, and like Steven Spielberg's movies all have a personal connection of some sort.
Yeah.
When you guys are thinking about movies, do you guys connect that? Do you think your concepts and the movies that you're going to make have some connection to something personal?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Julian.
I mean, look, I mean, there was, Jason and I have actually talked about this a fair amount. A lot of my films have to do to a certain part to. There's always a theme of grief in them, just because I lost my father 13 years ago, but and so ever since then, a lot of my stories have a character who loses someone in their life and stuff like that, and it's writing characters based on myself in a way.
It's a way to work things out in a way, right? Through other people's.
It's very therapeutic.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Jason?
Well, that's the thing. It's hard to say because I don't do a lot of writing in the sense that Julian does writing. Mm-hmm. In that, because I'm a structure and story expert, I focus more on the brass tacks.
Yeah.
So so I don't come from because I'm not an idea guy. I don't come from a place of my ideas are based on any particular thing or things that happen in my life. More so, I just look at what's presented to me and how to craft it into the most compelling script it can be.
First of all, my condolences about losing your father, Julian. That's hard.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely tough, and I found a lot of therapy came from writing stories based on my own experience, and it can be very rewarding.
Yeah, there's a human need to express.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's through that expression that we connect with each other as humans.
Yeah.
Jason?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What am I missing out of this podcast?
There actually is one thing I want to swing back to when we were talking about our process for going from concept to whatnot, and you and I are going to talk about this in the relatively near future, and that's character, because we've found a way to get around the problem of okay, well, what happens next. We always bring it back to the character now, and that is who. You don't have to go into all the detail in the world, but we need to, in order to write an effective story, because an effective story is about the character's journey.
Mm-hmm. Who
is the character? They're behaving a certain way. Why do they behave that way? What's their backstory? What's their trauma? And that came about because we are probably going to be producing a Friends script, and we're kind of going through it and working it out and kind of tuning it up, and every now and again you run into a problem. It's like, well, what about this? What about this? Like, okay, well, let's go back. You know, why does this character feel that this substandard job they have is the best they can do? What happened in their past? So basically, you need to look at, as far as character journey, you know, what's their backstory? What is a lie or untruth they believe about themselves or the world?
Yeah.
Why do they believe it? Which you don't always have to show their trauma. There's a number of movies where you'd never really see the backstory.
But it has to be understood in one way or another if it plays into the current story and that character.
Yeah, exactly. So in this one so basically, you know, you've got concept, you know, idea to concept, and then, you know, next in line is character, and we're you know, you and I are going to have a couple of conversations about that because it's going to be a fairly big subject. But
Jason is talking about our In the Weeds series, by the way, guys. Yeah,
In the Weeds. When we talk, when you and I are in the weeds. Yeah, no. So as you're developing your story, and if you run into a stumbling block, and you're thinking, well, what if this? What if this? What if this? Just go back to your character. Your character is going to react a certain way to a situation based on the backstory you've created for them. So you need to know what that is.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think when because we've only got a partial outline done for this, but I would like to think that when we were kind of bouncing ideas, Julian, that stopping, okay, well, what we want to happen versus how our character would react is a valid diagnostic tool,
and that could change everything. Like an entire storyline, even in our lives, can change depending on how we perceive and how we react to a situation.
Yeah, so you need to know before you can write, you need to know who your character is, because otherwise you get an inconsistent character, which is maddening as an audience member.
You have to understand your character. And you have to understand the character when the character doesn't understand itself.
Yes. That's a very good way to put it, actually.
That's actually really hard to do, though. You're looking at it from two different perspectives at the same time.
Yep.
That's where Julian comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also why it's important. You know, we'd like to think that we can make a film all by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I think in order to be a really good screenwriter, though, not all of us can go there. I mean, if we all had to be a wonderful, listen to me. If you have to be a very good screenwriter in order to make a movie, there will be like maybe 10 films made in this world. But for the most part, you need other people. You need to be able to trust other people. Sometimes you have to have an NDA, guys, together.
Yeah.
But you have to have some sort of an agreement and to trust those people and to work with them and make sure that, you know, you understand how to be able to share that job.
The one of the for these upcoming projects that we have, one of the guiding principles is that filmmaking is a team sport.
Yes.
There's no one person that makes a film. And actually, Julian, I actually have a question for you because it's actually relative to the podcast and the people we've been talking to in the weeds, and that is, so before we met, you were what they call a pantser. You just sat down and wrote your thing, and since we've met over the years, like, you know, the few years we've been friends, I've been, you know, a broken record on story structure and whatnot. And how would you say, from a practical standpoint, from then to now, how has that impacted your writing and your story quality?
Well, I mean, you know how much of an impulsive person I am.
Yes.
And how like the way I used to write is I would come up with an idea and I'd be like, I need to write this right now. And I would go and write it basically, do what I call a vomit draft of the script. And it's not the same anymore. Now, because I have gained a certain understanding of story structure, when I come up with an idea, I think about the character and I think about their want and need. And once I figure out what that is, I kind of figure out, where I want the story to go. And I don't write it until I have a basic outline. Sometimes it's just in my head, but I have a basic outline of, the beginning, middle, and end, the character's want and need, and so on. And that didn't happen before. I would just be like, oh, imagine a movie about this, and then I would write that. And
that is really skilled. So Julian, and almost everything that I write, I don't think about anything. I just start with one letter that turns into a word, that turns into a sentence, that turns into a thought, that turns into a thing. And the next is, how fast can I write this as I am imagining it? Because it's kind of like that dream where that whole story in film, I felt like that couldn't have been me, but it was there. My imagination is, you ever have your parents say, wow, Julian, you have a very big imagination. It's almost like that. And I can almost hear some of our listeners saying, you know what, Susie, I'm like that too. I'm like that too. I can't go through this process. But I think when you're going to make an actual film, right, because we were just saying the filmmaker, but I think in the end, the director is the filmmaker as a whole, because there is that one person that really puts that package together, bringing everybody together with the passion and all that, like we were discussing earlier. And to me, as a film festival, director, it's like that's the filmmaker, and so for some of our listeners who are out there right now and saying, I'm like that too, I think that everything that we're learning with the In the Weeds and Julian's, discussion here, and with Jason, when you're going to make a film, you're bringing an entire team on board. And so it's not just you and a piece of paper and a pen. Yeah. It's not just you typing out your story, into a screenplay. This is a team of people that are invested and they are counting on you, so in order to get this right, you don't want to get them involved until you have that homework done, even though it sounds bad to say homework, but in order to have that process so that you have the best screenplay or the best concept and structure and everything put together so that once your team gets together, you have something more solid that doesn't turn out to be that film that never gets filmed or gets past the post-production. I just think that we want to be able to, even though we each have our different ways of doing this, to be able to explain why, because it's the team thing. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and end this show. Leave you with that thought in mind. Julian, where can people reach you? I know we're going to share some links with everyone about you. But what is one place where they can follow you?
I am on Instagram under the Instagram handle is Julian Zero Theory, and zero being a word, so Julian Zero Theory, all one word. And I am also on Twitter as the real JBV.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So those are the two best places. I use Instagram. I actually don't use either very much, but I am frequently on them.
Yeah.
So
okay, so if anybody Well, everybody go follow him, okay? And then if anybody
go
has
follow
questions
Julian.
or whatever, you can contact you. Jason, you
Absolutely.
are always, more often than not, on Instagram, but also on Twitter. I think you are Jason C. Marshall or Jason Marshall CA, right?
Okay, so Jason C. Marshall on Instagram, where that's my
Yeah.
primary thing, and Jason Marshall CA on Twitter, because some other guy took the handle I want and he hasn't posted in 5 years. and I can't get the handle. It really is making me mad.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to wish happy holidays to both of you and to all our listeners from San Diego and from Ottawa in Canada. And why don't you each say goodbye to our listeners?
Bye.
Bye-bye, listeners. Thanks for listening. Kind of messed that one up. Bye.